Welcome to SFL This Week, Season 22, Week 7 edition, along with Mike O'Neill. I'm Cameron Irvine, just hoping my light doesn't fall off my wall. How are you, Mike?
I'm good, man. I'm good, and it had a really good weekend, and quite a little bit of storyline going on over the weekend. We got some interesting ones that we're going to get to, but yeah, it's been a fun weekend in the SFL, and I'm excited to break it down with you.
Yeah, it was a terrific weekend. We did have a few blowouts. We'll get to later in the show, but we had we had some thrillers as well. Let's take a look at the week's headlines. How about this one, Mike? Numbing loss. Did you see what I did there? Sorry,
I saw what you did there.
Seattle started strong. They started strong, but faded in the second half of Charleston's second straight win. Portland's on the board. Came back from 16-10 down to steal a win from Motor City. It's Portland's first of the season. They finished the first half of the year 1-5. Mexico City staying hot. They scored 38 points or more for the third straight game. They hand LA their sixth loss. Another rout for Canton. They made it look easy, well on their way to obliterating the point differential record in the SFL. But next up for Canton, Mike, is Houston. They dominated Tulsa a week before dominating another opponent on their schedule. Can they upset Canton next Sunday? That game is March 3rd. Ha! Damon says, yikes, Cam, but then Doug Day right above him is like, that's hilarious. What do you think? What caught your attention this week, Mike?
Well, certainly the numbing loss.
Not from the graphic, from the week.
No, I'm talking about the game. That's what caught my eye, because Charleston, man. I mean, I told you we were talking before the show, and I said, look, only in the SFL can you have a team that goes 5 weeks or essentially winless, and then, wins 2 in a row, and the second one being against one of the top teams in the SFL. So kudos to Charleston. For whatever reason, Charleston has got Ty Patak's number. For whatever reason. I mean, we saw it last year in the last season in the playoffs. We saw it now. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So hats off to the Charleston Predators organization for pulling that out. That's a big win, and I don't think that they're going to be taking that lightly over there. Obviously, Houston over Tulsa was the second thing to me. I knew that Houston was capable of winning that game. I just didn't know it would be in that fashion. You want to believe that Tulsa's explosive offense can go a little bit further than what they showed against the Headhunters. But I think that just speaks even more to this Houston team being legit this season, Cam.
Yeah, I think what the Headhunters did to Tulsa defensively, I think is shaping up to be a 2-0 game against Canton next week. I think the over-under on that game may be 19 because it's, I mean,
might be right.
Both defenses are pretty terrific, and it's going to be a good showdown. It's a 6:45 kickoff, I believe. It's in the same block as Arizona Baltimore, Mike. So if there's one block you don't want to miss next week, it's Arizona Baltimore and Canton DC.
Better get that split screen going.
That's right, in the 6:30 window on Sunday. So that's a look at our headlines. But first, after all that, we go to the highlights, and we start with Florida, the defending champs, on the road, doing it again early on. Look at the tip.
What a grab.
James Hands to himself. Touchdown, Arizona, striking the pose as well. 7-0 Scorpions early in their glow sets. Ron Cochran drops to throw, and he's picked off by Parker Thomas down to the 10-yard line. Arizona's looking sharp early on, and Florida's looking for answers. They wouldn't find it here. 3rd down and goal. Chris Komisak, who's been unstoppable inside the 5-yard line, wrapped up by Eddie Gage. That results in a field goal. But Daniel Wright takes an interception away late in the third quarter, and that started Florida's momentum. From their 1-yard line, they took it all the way, thanks in part to this play. On 3rd down and 14, Ron Cochran to Bullet Boletsky. How did he get behind the defense? Are you kidding me? Boletsky all the way down to the 15-yard line to set up Florida in the red zone. And this time inside the 5, they would capitalize. That is the newcomer for Florida, Nate LeMay, the rookie stepping up huge, signed just a couple of weeks ago. And that would get Florida into a tie ball game. The Storm at 10-10 hits Art Vandelay, a 4K23 career high for Vandelay. Makes it a first and goal at the 7, and then with 2:08 to go in the fourth quarter, flip out to Beletsky, breaks off a tackle, got into the end zone, and hurt the guy that tackled him in the process, J.R. Lawless. That is savage, Bullet. 17-10, Florida back on top. 3rd and 2, trying to keep the ensuing drive alive. Ashley Jackson hits Donnie Hands. That was her 13th completion of the day, over 230 yards, but 3 plays later, Jackson, the Scorpions offense, had not moved. So 4th and 10 with 1:19 to go. Jackson goes play fake, looks to the back of the end zone, and finds nobody. Tipped away, incomplete. The Florida Storm do it again, Mike, the second straight week. They go on the road and come back to win the ball game. The Storm are 6-0, and they are doing it very impressively. What'd you think of Florida's second half performance?
Oh man, they turned it on the second half, and Arizona I thought played a pretty good game too. It was a good game all around. And it's unfortunate. I know that the Arizona locker room was probably so disheartened to see that, that one pass. I mean, if Ashley Jackson would have literally put just that much more air on that ball, it could have been going to the back of the end zone for a touchdown. So, it's disheartening, but I mean, we're talking about a Florida team that's going to be thick in the playoff hunt. I mean, this is a team that has, I think, gotten better since last season, and they won it all last season. So, this is a really, really good Florida team, and I'm excited to see where they go the rest of the season.
This team's got grit, man. It's just it's amazing what they've been able to do. Alamo City's 2-4 because of the Storm. Arizona's 3-3 because of the Storm. It has not been an easy schedule for Florida. They got Canton in Week 13 as well.
Oh, my gosh.
That showdown between two undefeateds is looming for the Florida. So whatever broadcast team gets that game in Week 13, they're going to have some fun. All right, back to the highlights. We go to Indianapolis, where last night Denver and Indy put on a show. How about this play? Andre Tucker. I think that's the Retroid nice hands catch of the season right there, Mike. Let's take another look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to recreate that, even if you tried. I mean, look at the diving one-handed catch off a tip. That is, give that man a raise.
So Denver gets the stop. 19 seconds to go in the first quarter. Still no score. And Indianapolis takes some momentum with them into the first quarter. Look at the time the offensive lineman gives Colin Pierce, Jeff Banfield down the field. He's actually been a bigger weapon than Ryan Roosevelt over the last couple of weeks. Pierce to Randy Pierce in the back of the end zone. Touchdown later in the drive in the second quarter makes it 7-0. Indianapolis in a pretty defensive game. Pierce again in the second quarter finds Jeff Banfield, and the ball crosses the pylon just barely. 14-0. Indy on top of Denver late in the second quarter. 3rd down and 2. Denver trying to put together a drive. Look out, Chad Rowland. Lord knows he's been eaten. That brings up 4th down. 5 sacks for Indy on 3rd down in this game. Ensuing punt. We know, you know at home, if we're showing you a punt, something crazy happened. Indianapolis on the return. Fumble! Picked up by Luke Schreiner and brought down to the 12-yard line. Again, just with 1 minute to go in the first half, and all of a sudden, Denver, who's got nothing going on offense, has new life.
Yeah, it's a huge play. Special teams, it just goes to show you special teams can help you win a ball game.
Gene Struthers drops to throw and finds Jeremy Mosley for the touchdown. So just like that, Denver makes it a one-possession game, 14-7. Now, fast forward 17-7. Denver down 10. That's a touchdown to Dylan Lewis. 1:28 to go in the fourth quarter. They scored that touchdown off a fumble as well from Indianapolis. Onside kick here. Watch the Indy player. Whoa! Bobbled it and just recovered. That was almost an onside kick recovery for Denver. A key moment in this game, not in the highlight reel, Mike, was a faked field goal that would have worked wide open but dropped at the goal line. That was the difference at the end of the game in this game. It was 17-7. I don't fault Denver for the decision at all. It was the perfect time to pull out a fake because you're going to get the field goal when you're down at the 3-yard line, or are you going to fake a field goal and try to get a touchdown? It just didn't work out, and unfortunately Denver is 2-4. But Indy's defense, last 2 weeks, they've given up just 14 points, 0 to Arizona, 14 to Denver, but twice on short fields, right? Denver had less than 100 yards of total offense through much of that game. This Indy defense is going places.
Yeah, they're an aggressive defense. They play a lot of man coverage, and you know, they run with the whole philosophy of we think our guys can beat your guys, and that's really working out for them. I mean, that secondary's humming, and they're fast and they're fun to watch, man. They really put on a great show against Denver. You know, like you said about the fake field goal, I think it was the right moment. You could have taken 3 there, and nobody would have even batted an eye. So at the end of the day, you know, Denver's coaching staff did exactly what they needed to, but just couldn't pull out the win. Indianapolis were just the better team. And I just got a side note, Cam. I got to say, I love the Indy red uniforms. I love them. I think that they're so clean. I love that color red. It's a really, really good look for Indianapolis.
Look, they were getting a lot of flack in the chat for those Yard Bricks uniforms. I like them too. I didn't understand what the fuss was about. Denver falls to 2-4. They lost to Vancouver 38-21 last week, 17-14 this week to Indy. They feel like they're right there, but maybe not just there yet. Very young team in Denver. All right, back to the highlights. Let's go to Charleston, where Ty Patak had problems early, middle, and late. Pass picked off by Sam Blotner, the 1-4 Predators, who got their first win just last week, right? Against Los Angeles in an ugly game. And all of a sudden, look, no score towards the end of the first quarter. Picked again. Look at that diving play. John Stamango with the interception, but Charleston was having a bunch of offensive problems too. They couldn't convert off those turnovers. We're still scoreless. Type attack. They let him out of the pocket, and he does crazy things like this. Gus Scott down the field in one-on-one coverage. 5-4-3-2-1 touchdown, and Seattle was up on top. And it felt like in that moment, Mike, that all's well that ends well. Seattle had a slow start, but they're going to keep it rolling. It was not to be, because in the third quarter, still 7-0, John Lakeman pulled a rabbit out of his hat with this play to Davius Reed. Defender fell over, and Reed did the rest.
That is an explosive play on offense, man. And anytime you can get that out of your offense, it's a great thing. And this is where Charleston really started to turn it around.
Lakeman to Reed again late in the fourth quarter. They needed that to keep the drive going. 14-10 Charleston, up by just 4 again to keep the drive going. Lakeman dump off to Storm against a blitz. Got the first down. And then just before the 2-minute warning, it almost looked like they caught Seattle napping. Look at the clock, 2:02, 2:01. They snapped the football, and I don't think Seattle was expecting that. Hoagland breaks off a tackle, and he's going to score. Charleston scored on touchdowns on 3 of their last 4 possessions in this ball game after they had gotten nothing out of their offense in the first half.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And we talked about, all the analysts talk about, you know, the first 5 games, the biggest downfall of Charleston was their offense, and they turned it around in this game at a really, really good time.
4th down, trying to keep the game alive. Blackwell is blanketed. They're all over him, and that's a wrap. 21-10, Charleston gets the win. So Charleston, in their first 4 games, had a few losses by just a few points. They were right there. Remember, they started with those back-to-back 20-17 losses. And now when you fast forward the tape, Florida's 6-0, right? Charleston played them in Florida into overtime. They got off to a bad start the season. They've won 2 in a row now. They put that ugly loss to Los Angeles behind them. They got the win over Seattle, so they're done with the Pacific. Who knows? Maybe the Preds can make a run.
No, honestly, this is exactly what they did last year, Cam. The first half of the season, they were not very good. In the second half, just when it's like they wait for everybody to fall asleep, and then they do and take care of business in the middle of the night, and that's exactly what they're doing right now through the second half of the season. I mean, it's starting with a big win over Seattle. I mean, that is a huge win. It's one of the best teams in the SFL, and one of the best offenses, and to hold them to 10 points is impressive.
JW Hartshorn in the chat asking about what I think of Charleston's uniforms this season, because there was one week that I was like, I'm not a fan. I've liked all the other ones. Don't be so negative in my chat. You're going to get called out. Don't be so negative, JW. I like every single thing that Charleston's put out. Just didn't like it. Other people did. Back to the highlights. Vancouver at Fort Worth started the week. Christian Brown picked by Aiden Davis. Look at this return. Got a block, got a spin, and got a block by Adam Leach, and he's gone. 103 yards on the opening drive. Aiden Davis, what a play. Christian Brown has had interception problems this season. That did not help his confidence, Mike, as Florida went up 7-0. And then on the next possession, Christian Brown drives his team all the way back down the field again. And on 3rd and goal, with plenty of time, is picked by Aiden Davis. I mean, this guy was just all over the place.
Oh, my gosh. That is unbelievable, man. Aiden Davis, I thought he was going to be out for the entire next series after that return back. But, back in it, doing it again. Same thing. Aiden Davis had his number early.
So 7-0. The offense doing some work, too. Charlie Baker. Hey, who says backup running backs can't get runs for big yards? All the way down to the 2-yard line. 1st and goal for the Toros. And then on the very next play, Dunhill gives it off to Bacon. What a touchdown, Vulture. That's so rude. 14-0. Fort Worth takes the lead over Vancouver. The Legion offense, just like they have in a couple previous road games, struggling. Hey, Marcus Dunhill got hurt in this game. That's the backup. And look at Robert Garrett Jr. Vancouver, couple defenders looked like they quit on the play. He gets away and gets all the way down to the 10-yard line. Hamilton had to save a touchdown. And is that it? Is that the end of the highlight? Wow, that's a mistake. Anyway, 27-16, Fort Worth beats Vancouver.
You got to see my live reaction on that one, because I was like, that blowing my mind. But just good. Tackling is everything, people. Listen, you got to be able to tackle. There's Robert Garrett Jr. had no business taking that an extra 30 yards.
I know I cut more in the highlights, so I'll just tell you. Stephen Hacker, one-handed catch, scored, made it 21-3. It was 27-9 after some back-and-forth field goals. Kendra Wells got a late touchdown. Nice throw from Christian Brown, but it wasn't enough. Too little too late. Vancouver's offense just a little stagnant in between the fives, I like to say, Mike. You got that 5-minute tempo offense. You got that no-huddle offense, inside of 2 minutes, and then you've got your regular offense. Vancouver's regular offense kind of let them down today. But I will say, Mike, I think that Vancouver was spooked by the 2 early interceptions by Aiden Davis.
Well, that changes the game.
It'll rattle a coach. Exactly. It'll rattle a coach.
Yeah, you get out there early and you throw a couple interceptions. If you make a couple mistakes early in the first quarter, you will see the entirety of the game be dictated completely different. And just as far as play calling goes, you're going to see much more conservative play calls. You're going to see a lot less risk taking, because ultimately you can't make that many mistakes and expect to win football games. So I definitely think that Vancouver had the right approach, but and they'll turn it around. We know this coaching staff. We know what they're capable of. I mean, the same thing last season. Everybody questioned, and guess where they ended up? Right back in the playoffs. Right. So, it's no. Fort Worth is just as good of a team as they were last season, and so it's no surprise. That's a really, really tough loss. But get back to it. Get back to the grind, and it's going to pan out for Vancouver. Fort Worth, they just keep things rolling, man. Aiden Davis looked great.
Justin Reside, $5 super chat. Queen City will be back next week. The Minnesota game, we can neutralize Penn that one and move on to ACA. I want to read the super chats as they come in, but yes, Justin, just put a pin in it, burn the tape. I don't know. We'll get back. We'll get to that game. We'll get to that game shortly because we've got some blowouts to talk about next. Let's talk about Houston first. 38-10 over Tulsa. You look at the points off turnovers. You look at how they were able to dominate in the second half, and look in the red zone. 4 trips, 4 touchdowns. This was a common theme from teams that won big this week. You get inside the 20 and you punch it in for 6, you're tough to stop.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Cam. And look, everybody wants to overlook, but that one stat that nobody really likes to pay attention to is points off of turnovers. Like, that is a huge, huge tell right there. 21 points came off of possessions that were handed to Houston by Tulsa. Those were not supposed to be Houston's possessions. Those were supposed to be Tulsa's possessions. When you're giving your possessions to the other team and they're scoring 3 touchdowns off of it, it's going to be hard to win that game. Otherwise, Houston really only put up 17 points of their actual off of their regular possessions that they were supposed to have. So you look at that, man, and you're like, okay, you got to fix these mistakes. You got to clean it up. I really, really think that Houston is a serious contender this season.
Josh Slapp is now just a yard behind Logan Lee as the league's leading rusher through 6 games. And then, you also have to talk about the fact that Gabriel Manning was averaging about 170 yards per game coming into this game. 1 reception for Manning. I think it was for 17 yards. He was totally bottled up, and Houston's defense was very impressive. They improved to 5-1. And they are towards the top of the standings. Tulsa's still a good team, 3-3, but they showed in this game that if Manning doesn't have a big game, maybe they don't have another answer. They're going to have to find that plan B.
They have to. That's on the coaches. That is like your number one thing that you can do right now if you're in the Tulsa locker room is how can we figure out how to utilize our other weapons to complement Gabriel Manning so we're not leaning on him. Michael Brown, it's a young quarterback, and he's feeding the ball too much to Gabriel Manning, and it's getting them in trouble at this point. They got to put him work.
So that's Houston's win over Tulsa. Desperados still holding strong at 3-3. Canton beats Louisiana 43-3. Look at the points off turnovers, 26-0. I think the most interesting thing about this game was 300 passing yards from Scar Patterson. That stood out in this win. Look, Canton is blowing people out left and right. This was a snoozer, and they may have more snoozers. They may not be the most exciting team to watch for anybody else, not in a Canton uniform, but it sure is fun to watch if you're a Canton Classic. Demond Simeon, $10 super chat. Houston has worked hard to improve scoring off of forced turnovers, and he's totally right. By the way, Baltimore leads the league at 60 points off turnovers coming into the week. So the fact that Canton got 26 in one game, Houston got 21 in one game is pretty crazy.
That's wild. Looking at this Canton Louisiana game, I mean, let's be real. Louisiana's got to find some answers. They've got to find some answers because their backs aren't being utilized the way that they should. They're not getting. I mean, we talked about it in the offseason. There's a lot of money invested into these running backs, and they're great running backs. They've got a lot of athletes there, right? But they're not being used. And you can say that Canton is the powerhouse of this season all you want to. You can make excuses, or you can get back to the drawing board and you can say Canton just had our number in every single phase of the game. And you can't. You just got to get back to the drawing board and figure it out because that Louisiana roster is capable of winning games, and they're capable of playing better than they did against this Canton team, which I don't think the Canton team is as unstoppable as everybody thinks. I think that they're just playing their game better than everybody else this season.
Louisiana's had a couple of tough weeks. They had that fourth quarter spiral out of control on them in a very close game against Seattle. And then in this game, it was 13-0 at the half. They were in this game, right? And so 2 weeks in a row, we've seen second halves get away from the Revs. They are in this game. They are a very good team, but they have to figure out how to stay in games in the second half, how to build leads so that they can rely more on Dwayne Sammons and Chris Grant Jr. Yeah, it was a tough outing for Louisiana. Canton improves to 6-0. Louisiana drops to 2-4. Next, Mexico City 38-16 over Los Angeles. The Lycans fall to 0-6. The rushing yards has been a problem, Mike. 43 for LA. They just have not been able to establish a run game. Look at the red zone trips. 3 trips, just 1 touchdown. Points off turnovers, 24 for Mexico City.
That's the difference.
You notice, Mike, in these blowouts, it's these points off turnovers that are killing it. If teams take care of the ball and they keep out of harm's way, they're fine.
That's the difference, man. That's the difference. You got to learn how to play mistake-free football. It goes for every single team in the SFL, and it's hard to do. I understand it's hard to do because we've got defenses that are flying around this season in the SFL. And defense is really, offense is at a premium, and I've said that since the beginning of the season. But you got to figure out how to take care of the football. You have to figure out how to, play within your scheme and within your capability and do that in the best way that you can. And I think that's where these blowouts are coming from. Exactly like you said, points off of turnovers. Mexico City offense looks really good. I got to give it to them. They look really good 3 weeks in a row now.
Yeah. Mike, I look at it kind of like, the NFL, there's been some videos floating around about how offenses are dull. By and large in the NFL was a defensive year this season. The season before that was an offensive year. I think what we're seeing is that there were a lot of offenses last season that were just hoping that a running back could break 2 or 3 tackles and get loose.
Exactly. Yep.
And that was inflating their ability to score. And now that we're not seeing that as often in the SFL, you're seeing what it takes to actually coach offense, right? And so
it's hard.
Yeah, and so the fact that Mexico City has scored 38 points in a row, 3 straight weeks, with a rookie coach, offensive coordinator Mike Daggs.
Yep.
I mean, that's not nothing in the SFL.
No.
Not nothing.
No, that's impressive. It is really impressive, and I think Daggs is doing a great job. Mexico City made an excellent decision appointing him as OC. He's really turning it around. Jordan Sipe looks good over the past 3 weeks. It is exactly what you're saying. A lot of teams last season, I think, got bailed out. A lot of coaches got bailed out. This season, you have to kind of design your runs. You have to kind of design, your offense as a whole, and it's much harder to do. But the teams who are getting it, you can tell pretty early on.
LA's in a rebuild. We'll see what they do moving forward. They fall to 0-6. Minnesota last night in the nightcap in a game that took like 5 hours to complete, beat Queen City 33-7, 445 total yards. Don't often see a metric like that. Look at the red zone. 3 trips, 3 touchdowns. They dominated time of possession. Queen City looked disinterested in establishing a run game last night. Minnesota did it late, although they struggled just a bit. They ended up with 140 anyway. Minnesota is 5-1. They've won 5 in a row, Mike. They look sharp.
Yeah, they do look sharp. I've watched every one of their games, and they really are an impressive team, and we knew it was only a matter of time. We know the work that they put in the coaching staff over there. We know that they do a really good job behind the scenes. Queen City, I feel like, I got to say it. Queen City, this is what happens whenever you come into a game a little too aggressive. Queen City wanted to force the pass, and they tried to force the pass so often. And I think that's what ultimately lost in this game, because there were plenty of times where Queen City just needed 2 or 3 yards. They just needed 2 or 3 yards to move the chains, and instead they would try and go for 15 to 25. And when you got a defense like Minnesota out there, playing the way that they're playing, you're really playing with fire in that. And I think Minnesota had the right game plan, and Queen City, just get back to the drawing board. They're a good team. They'll get back to it, and it's crazy. It's interesting though. We see conservative teams this week, and then we've seen aggressive teams this week that either it just goes to show you it's all about the balance.
Mm-hmm. So Queen City will have to shake that off heading into week 7. They are kind of like Tulsa or kind of like Atlanta. We'll get to those 3-3 teams here in a little bit. One team that is not 3-3 are the DC Dragons. They went to Jacksonville to try and make something happen. 4th and short. Jacksonville actually got a stop on that. They overturned it. You can see they only had 11 total yards up to this point towards the end of the first quarter. And safety rookie Tyler Highfield comes in to get the sack. He also had a pick at the end of the game. So, all over it. Taekwon Hale in the backfield. That is tackle for loss number 200. Mike, he's the 4th player in SFL history to do that. Still a defensive struggle until Shabazz Synergy finds Lauren Prococo down the field 13-0. Looked very similar to a James Matthew Jr. score earlier this season, Mike, but, Lauren Prococo, one-on-one against a pretty small safety out there? No way.
Oh, yeah. You'll take it all day. Look at the height difference. Look at that. I mean, it is night and day, and that's the matchup that DC was looking for.
13-0 in the third quarter. Jacksonville needed to wake up. Look at that. 0 for 7 on third down up to this point. And O.J. Bruin finds down the field Connor Weston, his number 1 target. That ignited the Kings. And on the on later in the drive, Shepard Vakarian with the touchdown. It's 13-7, 1:46 to go in the third quarter. Jacksonville is in this ball game. Too little, too late. Kevin Say scores. The DC defense was suffocating. 23-7. The Dragons on top of the Kings, and that's how it would end. They get to 4-2. Jacksonville drops to 2-4. They've had pretty rigorous schedule. They lost to Mexico City in that Monday night game. DC comes into their house and gets a win as well. All right, it's time to go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, Jacksonville. I mean, I feel like they're a few tweaks away from having it because they really do have the personnel, and I feel like they were on the right path early on this season. I just feel like they're just, one or two little adjustments away from being able to be competitive because we see them in just about every game.
What I liked about their performance against DC, despite the loss, was that Bruin, before the last 2 minutes of the game, had no picks. He kept it clean. He struggled.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. DC was all over him, but he played a clean ball game. He kept them in the game by not making mistakes. Unfortunately, then towards the end of it, when he was down 2 scores, tried to press, and then that's what happened. So, all right, DC bounces back. They're 4-2. It's time to play Believer or Deceiver. Mike, we've got a bunch of 3-3 teams in the league, and I'm going to ask you if you are a believer or if they are a deceiver for the postseason. We're going to start with Vancouver, who took an L this week to Fort Worth.
Believer. I think they're going to be in the thick of things at the end of the season. I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. I tend to go believer, although I don't feel as strongly about them as I may some other teams. But Vancouver always gets it done. They're always in the playoffs, so how can you bet against them? How about Mexico City?
Exactly.
Believer or deceiver?
Believer, 110% believer, because I think this team really has something clicking. We saw the additions in the offseason, everybody that they brought in, and we knew it was only a matter of time before they got everything clicking. And I would say that they're clicking now. I think that the amount of offense they put up over the past few weeks just goes to speak on what they're doing over there. And that's the biggest thing right now in this league, in the SFL. If you can put up 30-plus points a game, you're going to be hard to beat.
Right. That's something most teams cannot do. Atlanta was on a bye, Mike, 3-3. Believer or deceiver?
Deceiver. Not sold on. I'm not on the swarm train. I was early on in the season. I think they started to kind of lose their way a little bit, and I'm not there for whatever reason. It's not clicking for me. I feel like they're going to be close to making the playoffs, but I think at the end of it, they're just going to fall just short. I think that we're looking at a 5 or 6 win team within Atlanta.
Mike Daggs, $12.83 super chat. Let's go Aztecs. Love you, Matt. Hashtag 12 forever. And I didn't give my thoughts on Mexico City. Huge believer, just for the reason that this offense is 6 weeks old. Imagine what they would look like in 6 more weeks, right? What is the ceiling for this team? Because I really don't know, and because they've been pretty impressive over the last month. Big believers there. Okay, how about who else we got? We've got Indianapolis. Believer or deceiver?
I wish there was a middle point. But I'm going to go believer because I think that their defense is starting to figure some things out. And I think that if you can hold, 14 points in 2 weeks, back-to-back weeks, over the span of 2 weeks is impressive. I think that Indy will figure it out because I really think that Colin Pierce has been awesome this season. And I really think that they're going to be able to figure things out and make the adjustments they need to. I could see Indy being in the playoffs this season.
Tulsa, believer or deceiver?
Deceiver. I think like everybody else, riding that high, that Michael Brown, Gabriel Manning, that flashy new connection in the beginning of the season. And listen, don't get me wrong, Gabriel Manning is on pace to be, and he far deserves MVP talks for the season he's having, right? But we're not talking about, everybody's forgetting about one side of that, which is you have a young quarterback who's trying to force your best player on the field the ball, and teams hone in that. hone in on that. And whenever teams hone in on that, you see what happens, like what happened with Houston. Whenever they stop that, whenever you take away Gabriel Manning, what do you have left? And I think that it's a lot easier for opposing teams to shut down Gabriel Manning than it is for, at this point, than it is for Tulsa to figure out how to change the entirety of their offense.
Look, one counterpoint to the Tulsa argument is, can Manning and Brown win a few more games on their own?
Oh, I think that they can win 2 or 3 more, but I don't think they're going to be.
How many more can they win, or can they show us another wrinkle? I think that's the big question mark for them in the second half of the season. Hey, Arizona, believer or deceiver, Mike?
Why do you have to make me the bad guy?
That's your job.
I'm gonna go believer.
Right.
Just because I can't. Listen, Arizona's been shut out twice this season. Now, let's be real. Eddie Gage is on vacation right now. Whenever Eddie Gage comes back, I think that Eddie Gage is going to be very focused on making sure that Arizona puts up a hefty amount of points for the rest of the season. And I really think that they'll be in the playoff hunt. I'm a believer.
Hey, Jay put up 10. I'm just saying. Like, Eddie wasn't on vacation in those other 2 games. Don't hurt me, Eddie. I'm just trying to get under your skin. Queen City.
By the way, I will say that I think Jay Ballmer is an excellent addition to Arizona. I think he's proven to be an excellent addition there.
Queen City, believer or deceiver?
Oh, believer all day. I think we're talking. You're just like
despite the loss.
Yeah, despite the loss. Yeah, I think Minnesota's that good. I mean, I would argue that right now, if you were to ask me the final 4 teams that would be in just the final 4 teams in the SFL right now, I would tell you Canton, Florida, Minnesota, and Houston. That would be my 4.
Oh, top 4 teams in the SFL.
Top 4 teams.
Saying
Canton, Florida, Minnesota, Houston. If you were to tell me right now to predict the final 4 teams standing at the end of the season, it would be those based off of how they played.
Good job going out on a ledge, just reading off the current standings. I mean, way to go, Mike.
Oh, I didn't. I don't even have them up.
But I get what you're saying. You're saying Queen City lost to a very good team. And so
that's nothing.
Right.
Like that's nothing. It's back to the drawing board for. Listen, Cam, I'm going to make the prediction that we are going to have. I think that we really are going to have an insane, probably the most competitive playoff race we've ever seen in the SFL this season.
That's a tall order. We've had some wild playoff races, but that 3-3, 6-6, it looks like that's the cut line once again. And so you never know. Hey, we got one more highlight to get to. And, Mike, I got to say, it might have been the best game all weekend. And maybe nobody's talking about it. But the Portland Fleet hosted the Motor City V8s. And look at the fullback, Jacob Farmer, out of the backfield in the end zone on the first drive. Portland went 12 straight quarters without a touchdown. On the opening drive of the game, they get in the end zone, 7-0 up on Motor City late in the first. Cyrus Jive. Look at the composure. Standing in the pot, showing off. Oh, Israel Adams into Motor City. Exactly, to the 47-yard line. The Portland Fleet finding their way 10-0 towards the end of the first half. Cyrus Jive, oh, that's not good. That is not good. Taking it all the way back. Look at Israel Adams hustle to save the touchdown because you know that big man wasn't going to do it. Motor City gets themselves in business and now have a chance to get on a drive. Now King Jackson over to Julian Gusters at the 18-yard line. You better hurry up and get that field goal unit on. You better hurry up. You need all the points you can get. Down to 2, down to 1. Oh, they got it off. Can you believe it? Field goal is good. 10-3 at the half. And just like that, Motor City was right back in this thing. The 1-4 V8s, the 0-5 Fleet. That was the most exciting 10-3 half of football you will ever see. Go back and watch it if you didn't see this game. Start of the second half, Johan Sutherland on the return. Stiff arm into oblivion. He says, hey, I'll give you that. I'll give you that too. All the way down to the sideline. Oh, my gosh, to the Portland 42-yard line. Sutherland came out angry in the third quarter. And there he is. One-handed grab. Touchdown, Motor City. They take the lead. Unbelievable. Motor City climbs all the way back into this thing late in the third as Portland so desperately tries to get a W. Ezekiel Love on the ensuing drive, touchdown, ties the game at 16, extra point good. Ezekiel Love, Scott Johnson running hard in this game. At one point, Johnson had 45 yards on just 9 carries. 5:40 to go, 17-16. King Jackson down a point, is picked off and going the other way. Portland's got the football. They fumble it. It's recovered by the Fleet, Bernard Smith, and they retain possession. Ridiculous. Going back, Nelson Lozano breaks a tackle, gets a block. Look at Portland hustling all the way down the field. We've been killing them on this show and every other show across the league all season long. And why don't they punch it in for an exclamation point? Ezekiel Love, boom. Last play of the game wasn't enough. 24-16 Portland. Mike, are you kidding me? What a game for the Fleet.
Yeah, it was a huge game. And I think the biggest reason is because we saw everything that former Portland would normally fall short on, they converted in this game.
Hail Mary, not worth much. And that's it. 24-16 Portland beats the V8s. Both teams are now 1-5. A little bit of momentum for Portland. I mean, look, they were at home playing one of the teams at the bottom of the standings. They won by 8. Should they feel super accomplished? Probably not. However, what they can take into the next week is that this offense now, 2 straight weeks in a row, has improved, right? And so they are finding their way through this season of the SFL, and I think Portland has a chance to make some serious noise. I mean, I obviously don't think they're a playoff team this year, 1-5. They would have to win out. I don't see that happening, but Portland's got some good things rolling now.
Well, I think it all started, I think you trace it back to the Houston blowout, the second half of the Houston blowout, because they finally started to find some offense in the second half of that game, right? But the biggest thing, like I was trying to allude to in the highlights, is this, so far this season, the former 0-5 Portland Fleet, you would see them, right? They would get an interception and then fumble it, right? And the other team would pick it up. They would go, catch it on third down. They would catch it 6 yards when they needed 7 and get tackled, right? It was all of these little tiny defeats that they would take throughout the game, and you saw all of those actually go their way and then correct them in this. So for one, I mean, they've needed an air attack desperately through the air. They needed a passing game. So the little wrinkle of the fullback out of the backfield into the end zone was exactly what the doctor ordered for Portland. I think that they made some great adjustments, and they really did look good. And I think Motor City, honestly, I think Motor City took a step forward in that game too, as far as offensively, because they've been desperately needing some help from their receivers. And Johan Sutherland being able to step up and play like he did, I think is a huge bonus for Motor City, even though they lost going forward. If he can continue to do that, Motor City could find some more success too.
Bone Frossel, I want Cam to grow a beard. No, you don't.
Come on now.
You know how you always put GG's in the chat for good game? You're putting GG's in the chat for gray and gross. All right, let's get to leaders. Let's look at passing touchdowns through the first half of the season. Type attack, Jordan Sipe at the top of the list with 12. Ron Cochran, Jack Wigmore, you'll see tonight has 11, so Wigmore with 2 can take the lead going into the second half of the season. Johnny Reno with 10. Ron Cochran, Johnny Reno, also just 6 interceptions. That's the fewest amongst the leaders on this list. What surprises you about the passing touchdown leaders through the first half of the season?
Do you even have to ask? Is Jordan Sipe at 12? Like that to me is the surprise. I mean, you've got this young Mexico City offense just making all kinds of noise, and it's crazy. Like you said, this is only 6 weeks old. So what is it going to look like, in 6 more weeks when we're talking about playoffs and everything? Jordan Sipe, I mean, you can't say enough about him. I think the rest of them are to be expected. Type attack, we knew he's been like that ever since he bursted onto the scene in the SFL, right? Ron Cochran, Wigmore, Reno, these are all household names. Jordan Sipe is somebody who desperately needed a season like he's having so far.
I just realized I really need to put you on the right so that when I'm looking, I'm actually looking at you. Anyway, these are just things I think out loud while doing this show. Does that make sense, Mike? Then that way I can
that
turn
makes
to
sense.
you and I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, hey, playoff picture. First time we've seen that, and that's what it looks like right now. Hey, where have we seen that before? Canton, Florida, Houston, Minnesota. Way to go, Mike. There's your top 4 right now. Seattle is your Pacific Division leader, so they're at 5. Fort Worth beat D.C., so they're at 6. Dragons 7. San Diego plays tonight. They are 3-2 and sit in the 8th spot currently. Then you have 6 teams at 3-3. There is, I believe, one more than that not on the list. But a lot of 3-3 teams. No surprise. Indy has the best SOV of them all right now at 444. So they are in the best position. What stands out to you? The first playoff picture of the season.
What stands
Mexico
out to
City
me
is the other 3-3 team missing.
Yeah, I mean, I would take out Tulsa and put in Mexico City.
Well, you can't.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, that's what stands out to me. There's, if we're looking at the playoff picture, what stands out to me is, like, I see a bunch of teams. I think the last 4 teams to me could really, really go either way. Even the last 6, honestly, could go either way. I mean, it's hard to say because this could look entirely different in 2 weeks, completely different. But I think one thing you got to talk about, like we talked about early, we've got Houston and Minnesota in the top 4, which I think if you would have asked that, earlier this season, after last season, or even a couple seasons, I mean, this is not something. These are not teams that you would think about being up near the top, and it's really refreshing to see for sure. I think Canton being number 1, obviously.
Look, Minnesota was 4-8 last year. They already have 5 wins. Like,
it's insane.
Houston didn't make the playoffs last year. They have 5 wins. Like, these are teams that were struggling mightily through much of the season and of last season, and now they are legit, championship contenders right now. Baltimore's 2-3. They're just off the graphic. If they win, I would imagine that they would also be in the playoff picture. But teams like Atlanta, Arizona, Mexico City, they need some big resume wins. Their SOVs are not going to carry them, or they need to get to 7 because that's probably your magic number in the playoff picture. So that's a look at that. We've got 11:36 to go until your boys and girls, the San Diego Mavericks, host the Baltimore Vultures. Charles Doherty will be with me. There's O'Neal pulling up his hoodie. It's a nice hoodie. It's a nice. I gotta admit, that's a nice hoodie. I don't know which team Wander plays for, but whatever. You gotta get the hat to complete the look. Mike O'Neal's been studying some film. He's got some keys. Let's take a look at his X's and O's. 6-4 left, down 16-10. Dunhill, they're going to keep it in his hands. Dunhill's pass, caught by Stevens!
Big look here. Seattle bringing a lot of pressure. Lakers flips down. Davius Reed out of the backfield. Oh, first down.
As Star Patterson is going to be...
Welcome back to X's and O's. Mike O'Neal here. Let's talk Baltimore and San Diego. This Baltimore offense is debatably the most explosive in the SFL, and it starts with these receivers. Look at the top of the screen here. It's going to be Ivory Irvin right there. This is just against a base defense for Mexico City on 1st and 10. Watch Irvin free release nearly, taking the top off the defense. Nobody's going to catch him, and this is something that San Diego has to prevent tonight. The safeties for San Diego are going to be tested tonight, and they have to be able to hold up to the challenge. On the other side, not defense, but on the other side of the offense, let's look at Mac Chima down here. 2nd and 9 situation again against Mexico City's base defense, and look at Chima go up and get it and take it an extra 20 yards. This is going to be crucial. For San Diego to win this game tonight, they have to shut down 10 and 88, and that is going to be a really, really difficult task. San Diego on offense has to get the run game going. They have to keep their offense churning, keep Baltimore's defense on the field and tire them out. That is the way that San Diego wins this game against Baltimore tonight. Good luck to both teams out on the field, and we'll see you guys later.
So there you go. And you noticed it, Mike, on film that, Baltimore probably better than any other team. First off, they're better than their 2-3 record. Two of their losses have come to Florida and Canton, who haven't lost all season. So that's something.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do better than anybody, getting a lot of heavy personnel on the field and then using Mac Chima and Ivory Irvin to just do great things.
It's insane. I mean, I'll continue to say it. Like, Baltimore, in my opinion, has the best 1-2 duo at wide receiver in the league. I don't think you could name a better one. Look at their stats this season, and it just goes to show. I mean, they're each averaging 100 yards a game. Like, it's pretty impressive. They really are just so explosive. And anytime you can get that out of your offense on early downs, right, where most teams are running, trying to pick up 3 or 4, how about picking up 80 on first down? Like, that's hard to defend. And so anytime you can get your offense doing that, it's hard. And for as a defensive mind looking at it, I mean, it stresses you out thinking about having to defend that, because now the biggest thing is you got to defend the run out of those base sets. So you're telling me now I have to defend an 80-yard touchdown pass out of the same set that I'm supposed to be defending a 5-yard run? Okay, well, good luck. So it's going to be a tough one. Keys for us, obviously, like I said, we just have to get the run game going. We have to keep the offense churning, because I think the best way to beat Baltimore is to keep their defense on the field, tire them out, and really just ultimately, if I'm being honest, just keep their offense off the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, here's some more nuggets to this game. These teams have only met now. This is their second meeting. Baltimore won the first one. It was not close, 43-17. San Diego, man, you got a tough schedule. 4 out of your next 5 opponents are above 500. That is not including Baltimore. So, you guys got to find some wins, and quick. I mentioned earlier in the show, Baltimore, number 1 in the league coming into the week in points off turnovers with 60. San Diego's pass defense is 3rd in the SFL. They give up just 171 yards per game, so they're going to be trying to slow down Mac Chima and Ivory Irvin. Chima is 22 yards from 21st all-time in the SFL. Will pass the great John Blades, 9,351 yards. Chima's at 9,331 yards. Of these, what do you want to hit at before we end the show?
Oh man, I got to talk about our schedule, because it is pretty gnarly. I mean, in the next few weeks, we obviously host Baltimore tonight. Then I believe next we travel to Seattle, I think next week, and then we have I want to say all I know is at some point over the next 4 or 5 weeks we got
you have Canton too.
Canton, we've got I want to say Fort Worth's on there, or Fort Worth. Yeah, I mean I have to pull it up, but it is insane over the next 4 weeks. I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle for us, and it's going to take a lot of time in the lab trying to scout these teams. And man, it's I have you to thank for that, so thank you.
Whatever.
We'll see how it goes for the Mavs.
Technically, you have all those teams that won all those games to thank for that, right? I mean, I didn't make them 4-2 and 5-1 and all that other stuff.
Yeah. I don't even want to hear it, Cam.
You and Eddie don't want to hear it. That's a wrap for SFL this week. We are all. What are you making tonight? I know you were doing a little bit of tailgating, Mike.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've got jerk chicken, jerk wings tonight. So throwing some wings in there and tossing them some jerk sauce, and we're gonna be ready to.
Awesome. Well, that is SFL this week for Week 7. Charles and I are about to get ready. Our stats team will be with us as well. Baltimore, San Diego coming up next. This has been SFL This Week, and we'll see you next week.